Let it go. Yeah, fine. Okay. Right. You could build in now. there. I think they have it muted.
Wakeman. And please, Friends of Nursing is sponsoring this forum. Cy was a featured speaker at the 2018 Magnet Conference in Colorado, and several of us, staff and leaders, had the opportunity to hear her speak. Our resounding comment was, we need to bring Cy to you. And that is what we did. And because we have our Friends of Nursing Endowed program, I encourage you to nominate people. We'll talk about that. It supports nursing excellence, and that is one of the pearls of what today is about. At the end of Cy's presentation, we'll have a drawing for 5 of her copies of her latest book, also known as There We Go. If you didn't have the opportunity to enter this drawing, please raise your hand so that we can make that happen, but I think most people did. An interesting thing to think about is Cy is a drama researcher. Now, I'm telling you, that would be the coolest thing. When I see Devin Page, our chief HR officer, back there thinking, this is what I'm going to do next. And I'm thinking, no way, Devin. You're going to do me. So, a drama researcher, a global thought leader, and a New York Times best-selling author recognized for her counterintuitive, reality-based approach to leadership, because all of you as nurses are leaders. Featured on the Today Show, the Ask Gary V Show, the Huffington Post, and Forbes, and many more, her groundbreaking ideas have helped thousands of organizations and individuals learn to harness the energy that gets wasted on drama, and instead use it to drive incredible results. And as you think about the work we're doing with our Commit to Zero, our quality management system, this exactly is what it's about. How do we get there together and drop the drama? So with that, I am pleased to welcome Cy up here. So please help me
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I hadn't even gotten off the stage at Magnet conference, and my assistant got a call. They'd just seen me, and they're like, we'd like her to come to Duke. And you know what my assistant, her comment was? She texted me. She goes, man, Duke nurses get stuff done. But she didn't use stuff, right? It's a pleasure to be here. Happy Nurses Week, Happy Nurses Day, Happy Nurses Year. We'll give you whatever you want, like for honor, because you deserve it. I never intended to be talking, whoops, I'll stay over here. I never intended to be talking to nurses. I never intended to lead nurses. One, I'm not a nurse. And secondly, I started out life as a therapist. So my background is social work. And I was very content working with my patients and clients on a regular basis. I was promoted into leadership, and after a few promotions, I found myself asked to lead a perioperative service line. And I found myself a leader of about 1,200 nurses, surgery techs, surgeons, and I had not yet had much leadership development or training. Isn't that what we do in healthcare, is we get you in the job, see if you survive, and then we teach you a little bit about leadership. But I actually was pretty grateful I didn't have that background, and I instead was able to use a lot of what I knew from the evidence and from my background in human behavior and behavior economics. So I am about my second week into this role as a leader in a perioperative area. We'll have to make sure that, there we go. And I'm about 2 weeks in, and a nurse shows up for her first patient of the day, and she's working pre-op. And I'm sure you guys know this, but pre-op's where you come to get informed about and prepared for your surgery or procedure. You hear about what recovery might be like, what to expect. We get informed consent. We make sure you get everything in and ready to go. It's very important work, but it's pretty routine work. I think you would agree. You're looking at the electronic health record, and if you're doing it well, you're going through checklists, not, I'm making it up as you go. So this nurse is thinking she might have an easy day because she's going to do pre-op, and she's early out, and she goes into her first patient. And as she's preparing the patient for her upcoming procedure, the patient becomes completely hysterical, just like out of the blue, starts to cry, says, get me my clothes, get me my husband, I want out of here, do not touch me, I will not let anything happen to me here. And so the nurse is obviously at first confused, and she begins to inquire, and she finds out that the patient had come in for a pretty routine nasal surgery and was being prepped for a partial hysterectomy. There's a mistake in the medical record. And we all, our hearts just sink, right? We all kind of go, oh. So she works to calm the patient down a little bit, and the patient's hysterical, the nurse becomes furious, and she's like, this is unacceptable. We just recently did an Epic upgrade, and this is the problem with, Epic and everything else. She becomes furious, and she goes out into the hallway looking for some leadership. And I am brand new, and she's like, are you the leader on duty, Wakeman? I'm like, yes, what can I do to help? And I turn towards her, and she begins to tell me her story. She's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. They haven't even designed Epic well. These mistakes can't happen. Registration, access, can't manage the way I have a paper bag. If I did my job like they did their job, I'd be fired. They need to understand that their carelessness can kill people. My license is on the line. Has anybody gone down the hallway and a colleague stops you and starts to tell the story? Now, this is a serious issue. I think that my approach was a bit disarming to her. I turned towards her, and I just made sure I opened up my heart chakra. I just always want to come and be calm and loving. And I asked her to take a really deep breath. That comes from my psych background. It resets your sympathetic nervous system. You realize there's no saber-toothed tigers chasing you around. I also was not a nurse, and only one of us was a nurse, and that nurse wasn't breathing right at the moment. And I really needed her here. And then with this disarming viewpoint, because it was different, I think, than how we lead one another and how you're led at times in healthcare, I came in with this fresh approach, and I just said, if you would be willing to, can you just answer me this question? If you were great right now, what would great look like? Now, to her credit, she entertained the question because she was pretty upset. And instantly, a lot changed for her. She went from venting and calling for people to be hurt, which is unusual for a nurse, to want, heads to roll and people to be harmed. And she stopped venting, and her eyes actually went up kind of in her head. You could tell she accessed a whole different part of her brain. And she instantly came up with some of the most amazing good ideas. She said, if I were great right now, I would be back in the patient room, and I would be gently helping the patient understand this actually is a good sign. It means our safety processes are working, right? That we're catching mistakes. We check multiple times to make sure that we're doing the right things to the right people. She said, you guys just trained me. I could turn my monitor towards the patient. It helps when there's a mistake made that the patient can visibly see. You type it in. It's visual cueing. She said I could call a bedside, and you guys know all this stuff. I could call a bedside, have the whole provider team and the anesthesia folks and everybody verbally go through the patient, make sure they understand that we understand what we're doing. And the point of the story is that she came up almost immediately with a lot of really great things she could do. Now, as a leader, I didn't run off and fix something for her. I wasn't even capable of that in the moment. But I did say then, it sounds like you know what great looks like. Please then go be great. And she did. She went back to that room. I stopped by to show executive oversight and support. I asked her afterwards, how'd it go? And she goes, it went just fine. I said, what did you learn from this experience? And she said, actually, I've done some self-reflecting. I learned that I very easily get pretty righteous when I am asked to take part in a process that I benefit from, like people are checking my work. I noticed I got righteous, and I was pretty quick to be critical of others. And I thought, awesome. I said, now that's so good to know about yourself. Now that you know that, you know better, you can be better, right? So now some of you are back on the fact that I mentioned the word epic and mistaken the health record, and you're like, but Sai, what if there was a process issue? There was a huge process issue. It seemed that it was an easy clicking error because the way we loaded in procedures, things that were spelled closely together were positioned too closely together. And as you click through, we increase the likelihood of clicking errors. It seems like you guys speak more Latin than I do, but it seems like in the Latin language, a single letter can make a big difference in your life. Whether something comes in you or goes out of you, like a lot of work. And so we had work to do. But who would you rather have helping you fix that process? The self-righteous, judgmental nurse calling for your head to roll, or the self-reflective, fantastically open-minded nurse who's just interested in safety of her patients? I would pick number two. Here's the good news. They're the same nurse, just in different mindsets. And I started to realize that as I worked with people, there are many people who didn't understand how to show up in that higher level of consciousness on a regular basis. And I thought there's a lot I can teach people about their own mind and their own way to move through their work so that it becomes more effortless and it becomes easier and it becomes more collaborative and innovative. And it has to do with a lot of evidence-based practice in the mental processes that you use. Now, I want to ask you, am I some sort of nurse whisperer, or why would this question not get me punched in the face? Why would it work, right? It's why with an open heart and, just lots of love, why do you think a question like this, or that technique of using a question, why do you think it might work? Any ideas? You guys are very quiet. Let me give you a couple of reasons it works. First of all, it's a trick question. What would great look like? Everybody knows what great would look like. They really do. Everybody knows, usually, what great would look like. How do I know you already know what great would look like? It is the fuel for your basis to judge other people by. If you're able to judge another, you're using your knowledge of what great would look like to make that judgment. See, I know what great looks like. It's what they're not doing. It's what HR is not doing. It's what environmental services isn't doing. Anybody use what great would look like for evil today, your knowledge of great? Yeah, by our nature, we know what great looks like because we're able to judge others based on that criteria. Very few of us remember to use our knowledge of what great looks like to call ourselves up. We're very quick to use it to judge others on. There's another reason that question works, and it has to do with how your mind works. So I'm going to simplify how your mind works for you. Imagine you have a light switch on your forehead, like a binary toggle switch, okay? And when it's toggled down, you're seeing the world through the lens of ego. So it's fueled by your amygdala. You're seeing a very limited view of the world. When you're toggled down, you are the victim. The reason you can't succeed is your circumstances. There is a villain out there. You are not able to see options where you can plug and play. It's like wearing a prescription pair of glasses that are the wrong prescription. Your view of the world is very corrupted. In fact, you're scanning the environment for insult. You get hypersensitive to insult because to stay alive, the ego eats anger for lunch. It looks for injustice. And it's not always rational. I gave a talk in one healthcare system, and she goes, I don't think you understand, our culture is very toxic. And I said, I've met all these brilliant, lovely people. It doesn't seem toxic to me, but I'm open. If there's something I can help you with, let me know. And I said, but do you have some data or fact-based kind of proof of this as a widespread belief? And she goes, in just a few minutes, she goes, come over here, I want you to look at this. And she shows me an email on her monitor. And the email said, I swear to you, you are invited to an ice cream social at 2 o'clock. Now, I'm not looking at through the lens of ego. I'm like, oh my gosh, free ice cream in the lobby at 2 o'clock. This is awesome. She just couldn't go there because she was seeing it through the lens of ego. She goes, oh, you don't know the backstory. I'm like, what's the backstory? Oh, there's a history. I go, what's the history of ice cream at this place? She goes, well, HR, they make sure that they schedule these events at the very time my team's least likely to be able to go. And I'm imagining how irrational that is. So HR, huddle up. Okay, 6 Southwest is our target today. We need to plan the ice cream social, and we're wondering what time to do it. So can anyone do algebra? And can you figure out the worst time for 6 Southwest to have ice cream, and we'll schedule it then? Right, that sounds silly. And I said, I doubt that, I just can't believe that that's really intentional and malicious. And she couldn't let it go. She's like, and they don't offer an alternative, and I'm lactose intolerant. And I'm like, then I wouldn't eat the ice cream because you'll get farty and bloaty. I just wouldn't The ego eats anger for lunch. It really gives you a corrupted view of the world. You're toggled down, and you're really seeing things through this lens of we are the victims and other people are the problem. Now, when you're toggled up, whole different view of the world. Now you're out of that part of your brain. You're able to use all of your intelligence. You're able to see so many options. When you're toggled down, you're judging. When you're toggled up, you're helping. When you're toggled down, you're limited. It's black and white. When you're toggled up, you're collaborative and innovative and accountable, and it's easy to engage. When you're toggled down, you're in learned helplessness. You go, I can't change everything, so I can't change anything. I can't change Epic, and I can't change Access, and I can't so there's nothing I really can do. And your only option that seems apparent to you is to disengage. When you're toggled up, you see so many options, and your natural instinct is to engage and impact and make a difference. And so that craving will take you to plug and play in all of these different opportunities. Same person, you and me, right? toggle down, toggled up. We have those two stations kind of in our minds. Now, how do you get from low self to high self? The simple act of self-reflection can get you from low self to high self. And here's why. Because you can't be in both places at the same time. It's binary. You can't be judging and helping at the same time. You can't be venting and self-reflecting at the same time. Your brain has this beautiful limitation. You can't be both places simultaneously. And I like to use that limitation for good. And that limitation starts early for you. How many of you have been around 2-year-olds? Okay, if a 2-year-old had this clicker, what would be a horrible strategy to use to get the clicker away from a 2-year-old? Yeah, demand it, give it to me, or grab it, right? Now, if you grab this clicker, the 2-year-old might not be that interested in this clicker at all until you wanted it, right? We just defend. I go, hey, give me that clicker. The 2-year-old's like, it's mine, and it's game on. Right? You could like drag a 2-year-old across the floor with a clicker. Not that that would be good, but you could do that. What's the best way to get a clicker away from a 2-year-old? Yeah, distract them, trade them. Yeah, there's this part of their brain. When you're a baby, we can give you 2 things, one in each hand. You're not managing them, but you can look like you are. But by the age of 2, we hit this limitation that you can't manage both things at once. And so if I go, hey, nice clicker, mine. It certainly is. Have you seen my water bottle? I haven't. Did you want my water bottle? I put them in a dilemma. They're like, I do. And they have to drop the clicker to take the water bottle. And we even test for development, those of you in pediatrics, right? We test because we want to see some resistance. We want to see your ego developing. We want to see that you realized you are not one with your mother anymore. You're like, I'm a separate person. I like it. Like, that's your ego, right? And then I test you. I let you get accustomed to that water bottle, and I go, or the clicker. Dang it, right? We want to see that. And you haven't outgrown that. And so the cool thing I want you to know is that you can instantly be happy, successful, innovative, collaborative. It's already in you when you're in high self at a higher level of consciousness. And the way to get from low self to high self is this simple act of self-reflection. And it's a really cool thing to do for one another and for all the people that we lead. See, whenever you come to me and you're venting and complaining, and I can just reach over and just help you with your toggle switch, is the best thing a colleague can do for one another. And I can do that not by grabbing your clicker. Well, aren't you negative today? It's like punching the ego in the face. It's like, well, we're supposed to. It's like, no. I can just say, what would great look like? What do you know for sure? What could we be doing to help right now? Those are wonderful ways that we can toggle ourselves and others up. And it becomes a very powerful tool because I know a lot about this stuff because I'm not only a therapist, but a drama researcher. And the tips I want to give you today are super important because I study how much drama there is in the workplace and what drama feels like. And when you're toggled down, you're miserable. And pretty soon the people around you are miserable. When you're toggled down, you see yourself as a victim. You feel better by venting and gossiping and tattling and scorekeeping and just all that low self stuff. When you're toggled up, you feel great. You feel like you have impact. So I study how much time people spend toggled down in the workplace, how much time people spend in drama. I define drama as anything that takes energy away from results, outcomes, safety, great experiences, and your own happiness. Anything that takes away from what we're trying to create here. It's unproductive thinking and disruptive thought processes and disruptive behavior. But you might recognize drama as the constant narration going on in your head, even when you're smiling and working your butt off. Oh my gosh, this is no way to run an organization. I cannot believe that that's what they decided. They didn't even consult us. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just sick and wrong. It's gonna end poorly. Oh, hello, patient. Are you lost? I would love to wayfind for you. Sure, come on, come on, come on. Oh, here's where you need to be. The signage in this place is just unbelievable. The fact that I, as a nurse, have to wayfind and, collect up lost people and get them back where they need to be. We need more transport. I can't believe they cut transport. Now I'm running people miles through Campa. Anybody have just a little narrator going on in your head? Now, here's some relieving news. You're not your thinking. And a lot of people are like, what? You're the observer of your thinking. That thing that's always running, that's not you. That's not you. You got to quit believing everything you think. And you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm the thinker. Try this tomorrow when you wake up. When you wake up, notice, do you go, I shall commence thinking now? I'm the one in charge. Or are you already being thought? Right? It is that you're working hard, but you're working hard at times with a grudge, with a little extra weight on. Instead of walking through air, you're swimming through mud. We add some drama into some things. I walked on a unit and I said, how's it going, you guys? It's insane, crazy, completely insane. I go, well, what do we know for sure? Gosh, I pulled up, I go, yeah, we're about 98% of capacity, and here's our current staffing level. I said, so I definitely would verify and validate that it is busy. So it's not busy, it's completely crazy, it's insane. And I said, well, you know how I love reality. Like, what's reality? Is it busy or is it crazy? And she had been through some of my training. She goes, I suppose you would say it's busy. And I go, I would. I said, so where'd the crazy come from? And she started laughing. She goes, I added that. And I go, well, was it helpful? Because let's only add stuff that's helpful, right? And there is this stuff that we add to our daily life that's not that helpful. There's two ways to go through today, joy or misery, your choice. Suffering is completely optional and most often self-imposed. And that's the freedom I want to teach you about. You spend 2.5 hours, if you're an average human being, in drama every day. 2.5 hours of lost productivity where you're not at your best. You're not seeing all the options you could take in. And 2.5 hours a day of feeling pretty miserable. Now, this isn't an average that got messed up by a few drama kings and queens. This is a very tight range of an average. Like, the average person spends 2.5 hours a day in drama. So let's do a little math. That's 816 hours per year. How many of you would welcome being able to go to the bathroom instead 816 times, right? Or be able to do the things you think are very important. Like, we could take that energy and we could upcycle it and put it into things that really have impact. And this is what you're about here at Duke. Now, this is a amazing opportunity to me, terrifying and amazing when I think about what our life could be like. Because when we're toggled down, we get really corrupted information, and we think what the ego tells us will feel better actually doesn't help. A lot of times when we're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, our first temptation is we need to disconnect, we need to unplug, we need to get away, we need to take a vacation. Here's a weird thing. Sometimes the antidote to fatigue is not unplugging, it is wholeheartedness and plugging in. Instead of playing in the middle, it's actually going farther in. That seems like it doesn't make sense. Have you ever had one of those days where all you can dream about is getting home and getting to your couch with your fuzzy blanket? When I worked direct patient care, I found it disturbing that I knew how many steps were from my car in my garage to my couch. I knew how many steps there were. I think it's a bad sign when you start to count those things, right? One day I came home and I'm just like, I just need to make it to the couch. And I look at my flower bed and I see a weed, a very prominent weed, in my front flower bed. And I'm pretty competitive when it comes to neighborhood landscaping. Like, it's like a trigger for me. So I go over and I'm just gonna pull that weed and get to my couch. 3 hours later, I have all the beds weeded. I'm still in like scrubs, right? I have all the beds weeded. What happened to my fatigue? It didn't dissipate because I got rest, but it dissipated because I wholeheartedly got into something I absolutely love. And so these are some techniques that can help you move through the world more skillfully. So I got really fascinated with drama, and I wanted to know what the sources of drama were, because if we know the sources, root cause, as part of your quality, like if we can get down to root cause, we can hopefully come up with some strategies. So through research, I found that 32% of all drama has to do with your ego. That whole narrative in your head that is just constantly wanting you to believe really ridiculous things, like HR plans ice cream socials at the right time to tick you off, right? And it's important because we need to stop believing everything we think. When we're toggled down, we're getting really bad information. The ego prefers certainty over accuracy. And so it jumps to a lot of the conclusions, and it gets us using bad data in our next move. Now, how many of you remember from your science classes that observer effect for experiments? The observer of the experiment affects the experiment just by observing? Was that mind-blowing? You're like, you mean light acts differently when I'm not in the room? You're like, what, right? If you have an effect on light just by watching it, don't you think you have quite a big effect on your life through every interaction? We're always co-creating. Your superpower that you probably don't use often enough, like I don't need to empower you and make things different. I just need to have you step into the power you already have, and this is a big power, is the one of co-creation. Because here's what happens. Your ego gets certain but not accurate. You respond out of that corrupted information, and you participate in influencing poor outcomes, not just patient outcomes, but relationship outcomes. Let me give you an example. Let's say that somebody walks by you and does not say hello, okay? Now, if you ask yourself, what do I know for sure about what just happened? When you think about what do you know for sure? A lot of people go, well, I know she's rude. And I go, no, what do you know for sure? And they go, well, I know she didn't say hello. I go, well, let's test that. Are eyewitness reports very accurate? The evidence would say no. Are you getting a little older? Do you miss a few things, right? Yeah, the evidence would say yes, right? Oh, I know what this is about. Now, in our practice, we're so evidence-based. But in our relationships, we're not very evidence-based. We're anecdotally based. So you walk by me and don't say hello. What do I know for sure? You didn't say hello? I don't know. Potential no hello. I have to be more tentative. You walked by me? I know that. Well, unless you talk to quantum physicists. They're like, sorry, people don't walk by you. None of these people exist. They're a projection of your molecular emotion. They're just your brain making holograms in the sky. I'm like, wow. But we'll just stick with some easy stuff. You walk by me and don't say hello. All I know is walk by, potential no hello. Now, if you want to be happy, toggle up and don't trust what your ego says, only if you want to be happy. So if you want to be happy, right, you would just borrow a chapter from our Buddhist friends. You would know that attachment's the source of suffering. You'd see somebody walk by, and you would go, oh, walk by, potential no hello. I will not attach. That would lead to suffering. I'm going to keep beginner's mind, and I'm going to conserve my energy, move on, add value, and move through life with a lot less energy consumption effortlessly. How many of you are awesome at that? Not jumping to conclusions. Like some of us are practicing, right? So you're going to the ego wants certainty. I know what this is about. And does the ego make up positive or negative stuff when you're looking for certainty? Negative. In fact, we're wired to make up negative stuff. If you ask evolutionary biologists, like, what is wrong with us, they will tell you that we are wired to be very anxious people. So imagine back in the cave person days, and there's two of us. I'm super chillax, and you're super anxious. So I hear something in the bushes, and I go, dude, it's a mouse. Now, I'm probably right 9 times out of 10. But that one time, my genetic material does not get passed on. Anxious one, 10 times out of 10, they run. They go, it's a saber-tooth tiger. They're exhausted, but that one time they're the ones who get to pass on their genetic material. So you are an accumulation of the most paranoid people through history, right? The overreactors. That's what you are wired to do. You're overreactors. We have to overcome that, just like we use methodology and evidence to overcome it. So you're going to make up something negative. You walk by me, don't say hello. I am going to be like, she is rude. Ever since she got that promotion, she thinks she saw that in a bag of chips. Can't talk to little people anymore. Right? I don't know any of this, but I'm going to make that up. Once I make that up, that you are rude, how do I treat you? Rudely. How do you respond? Rudely. I can see I'm right about crap I make up. Now, you guys are working on this, right? Part of your care model is to know, not assume. Like, we want to know so that we aren't making assumptions about our patients. But that leads us to a negative outcome. So you're co-creating. What if you couldn't stay neutral and you knew you're co-creating and you get a bit more responsible with your superpower? It's called giving people benefit of the doubt. That's what professionals do. We assume noble intent. So if I can't just stay neutral and I'm about to make something up about you, I'm going to give you the positive. I'm going to overrule my ego, and I'm going to give you benefit of the doubt. Now, this isn't about positive thinking. I'm going to just imagine a yacht and it comes in my yard. This is about knowing my power of co-creation so I can at least keep us at zero if need be. So you'll walk by me and don't say hello, and I'll go, oh, I feel the need for certainty. My ego wants to write this negative, but I'm a professional. I'm going to give you benefit of the doubt. I'm going to choose to believe, since I have to write something to satisfy my mind, that you are deep in prayer and meditation for peace in our world. And then I'm going to treat you really well. I'm like, how are you in this world and not of this world? Could I sit by you at lunch? I just want to, like, will it rub off? Does it, like... And then you're like, Sai, you're an amazing judge of character. I'm like, that's because I don't judge character, right? And we have better outcomes. Same walk by, power when I take it. Now think about all the times that you know what this is about. And I would question it because we really have to get beyond this ego. Now, accountability is 23% of all drama. And accountability is when I'm not reflecting. Self-reflection is the first step in accountability, and I'm not asking my part in this mess so that I can fix what I can and take action. Because here's what we know about happiness. It's not correlated as strongly as you might think to your circumstances. Sean Akers worked at Harvard. He wanted to know the drivers of happiness. He had people rate their own happiness, and he controlled for circumstances. He used twins and some other models. He found out that your circumstances, what's happening around you, have only 10% to do with what your happiness is, with your level, 10%. 50% you got at birth. And most people at birth, overwhelming majority, that don't have pain or are born into a place where they have food and the things they need are happy. Like 50% of your happiness, check, already done for you. In fact, happiness is such the norm that when we hear a baby cry, even if it isn't our baby, we're all like, somebody needs to do something. Like, no, they're just relieving stress. They're fine. No, check. Are their diapers dirty? Are they hungry? Unhappy babies are so not the norm that we go check things out. So 50% at birth, only 10% has to do with your circumstances. 40% of your happiness has to do with the amount of accountability you take for your circumstances. 40% is related to accountability. Now, when you're unhappy, how many of you are tempted to try and change reality? I need you to act different, and I need more money, and I need a different job, and a different boss, and but that's only going to give you a 10% chance. If you can change the whole world, you might increase your happiness 10%. But if you can change your accountability level, you get instant happiness. And how do you do that? Self-reflection. What's my part in this mess? The Dalai Lama says, if you're suffering and you can fix it, fix it. And if you can't, then get good with it. There's no need to suffer. But a lot of us like this third option. We go, that is a mess. I'm like, well, why don't you reflect and see what your part in the mess is and change what you can? Because I want to vent. I'm not going to take action, but I want to complain. I'm like, well, no, then accept it if it's unchangeable. No, I want to vent. I'm like, well, then change it so you don't have to vent. No, I want to vent. Has anybody done this, avoided? It's like there's some third option, right? I want to just stay and be miserable. And so accountability is our instant path to happiness. What can I do next that would add value or help? And then go do that, toggle switch up. A lot of people say, Sai, you just need to vent once in a while. Venting feels good. Okay, first of all, you need to know that venting is not sharing feelings. Venting is a behavior. And yes, it feels good. And so does crack cocaine, my patients reported. We don't want you doing either one at work or either one at home. Venting isn't a behavior that will lead to happiness because venting is the ego's way of avoiding self-reflection. So venting will just be get more venting. And once you form a neural pathway with venting, guess what you need to do to feed that neural pathway? More venting. And venting is a behavior, not a feeling. If you're in my therapy office, I wouldn't let you vent. You can share feelings. So I am so frustrated. Alex didn't give me the information I need, and I have a report that's late. It's past due. Empathy. Gosh dang, that does sound frustrating. Thank you for sharing that with me. Do you want to stay frustrated? No. I want to move through that feeling. I don't like it. Awesome. So what strategy could you employ to be less frustrated? This is what therapy sounds like for those of you that haven't been there. And most patients go to this strategy first. Well, I'm just not going to worry about it. It's not my business. I'm just going to let it go. I go, oh my gosh, that's a fantastic strategy. Getting back in your lane and not trying to run the world is like a really good strategy for happiness and success. So what else would you like to talk about? Well, he shouldn't just get away with it. Oh, we're not using the strategy of letting go. We're back on Alex. So then what is something you could do? Do you want to role play how to talk to him, to request directly what you need? But venting isn't about letting feelings go. It's about keeping them alive. It's a behavior. And most of what we're venting about, we made up. It never happened for sure. Oh, Alex didn't give me the information. I know what this is about. Can't you see this? Okay, it started back in '69 when the classes merged and he got a different title than I did. He's always felt very superior. And he is trying to discredit me with my boss, and he's actually trying to get me fired, and he's up for this promotion, and he thinks I might be up for it, and so he's really trying to put me one down. And like, anybody hear how I just made all that up? Because I can't possibly know that for sure. Venting is a story you make up to keep something alive. And if you don't believe that, if we run out of time, you'll come back with more proof. I go, yeah, I'm not really buying into that. Come back next week. You go, so I thought more about Alex. I have further proof. He walks by me with a smirk on his face. People just don't do that. Like, and so if you want happiness, you've got to step beyond venting and get into accountability. And a lot of people are like, Sai, I'm just a feelings person. That's not feeling. Sai, that's just how I am. I'm just bringing my whole self to work. I go, please do not bring your whole self to work. Do not do that. Bring your most evolved self to work. And bring your most evolved self home. Now, all that diversity out there, bring that. That's your authentic self. All those little intersections that make you you. But don't bring your most evolved, or don't bring your whole self to work. Bring your most evolved self to work. Buy-in is 14% of drama. Many times when we're toggled down, we forget buy-in is a verb. It's our move. We've got to go first. It's our plug to plug in. And we start getting conditional with our buy-in. I have 8 sons, okay? And recently, they reminded me of how this happens so quickly for us as human beings. So a lot of people go, oh my gosh, how do you do 8 sons? Well, just like we teach you how to do more patience. Standardize everything you can get your hands on, so that you can scale it, right? So in my house, everything is standardized. So my kids call it a residential treatment facility for adolescents, but I prefer to call it home. We have all white sheets, all white socks. We only drive Chevy Malibus, not because I like Chevy, but because I can search a Chevy Malibu in 5 minutes or less. I know where all the cigarettes can be hidden and all the beer bottles fit and all the little cubby holes. Like, we just standardize, right? So we also use big data in our home. We notice a trend with our boys that once they turn 13, the likelihood of them getting grounded goes up. So on their 13th birthday, to prepare for their imminent groundings, I teach them to play poker. Now, why would I teach my boys to play poker? Rumor has it nurses play a lot of cards. You might like this joke. Why would I teach my kids to play poker? Because when you get grounded, you don't get to slink off to your room and play Fortnite. You got to spend more time with your mama, because evidently my values have not transferred your cellular membranes. So we have to do remedial training. And if you're spending time with mama on Friday night, mama loves to play poker. So I teach you to play poker, and then you get grounded, and then I play poker with all the groundeds on Friday nights. That's what we do. Now, when I first started this tradition, people didn't care that much. They didn't play good poker because they just wanted to live through it, and they're all like slouching in their chairs. So I had to tinker with it a little bit. We now play poker. It's called Double Jeopardy for next week's allowance. Makes you care a little bit more. That's what you're betting. So I teach Charlie how to play poker, and I get Charlie grounded finally. And when you don't have a fourth person for the poker, it's like you ground for anything at that point. You're like, your attitude, I just don't like it. You're staying home. Like, you just fill up the table, right? So it makes it easy to ground people. So I deal the cards, and I go, Charlie, this hand's for real. We're not practicing. You're betting on next week's allowance. Place your bets. And Charlie's natural inclination, like all of ours, was, well, I don't want to risk my allowance. Mom, show me your cards first. And I go, Charlie, that's not how poker's played. You're not betting on my cards and how the deck is stacked. You're betting on your skill and your decision making and your cards. He said, Mom, please just at least show me one card. If I could just see one card, it'd make me feel better. I don't want to lose my allowance. I'm like, that's not how poker's played. And then I realized that a lot of us do this at work. We forget buy-in's a verb. I am all in as long as we have the proper staffing and that we are paid for all that we do, and we have the good computer systems, and everybody does the same workload, and everything is fair, and we all have to float, different places fairly, and as long as we don't have changing priorities, and there's no hypocrisy anywhere, and all the patients are compliant, and the providers are all kind, and anybody have a few conditions some days on your employment, and we forget that the only value we add is in imperfect circumstances. That we've got to buy in given those circumstances. And that our creativity comes when we know that reality is not the reason we can't succeed, it's the reality in which we must succeed, right? Change, I was so disappointed when this research came back in my 2016, that change, my research in 16 said that change was still 13% of drama. How many of you are like, change is hard, sigh? How many of you feel like we got too much change going on? You're a little change fatigued. Yeah. See, I noticed that as someone involved in social science because people have these weird beliefs about change. One, they think it's like some personality styles can do change better than others. That's not true. Change is a competency that you learn to get fluent in, just like pediatric IVs. I gave my first talk on change in 1989. What other competency do we give people 30 years to get good at? Can you imagine? You're like, you're not that good at pediatric IVs. You're like, I know, but I have 29 more years to really get good at this, right? And we have these weird beliefs that like change is hard. But the reality is, from my research, change is only hard for the unready. That readiness, which is a medical term I think nurses talk a lot about, right? We don't find Ebola and then go, crap, we should figure out how to do this. Like, we maintain readiness so that we can take care of patients. And I see this in you guys because when I was on the units as a leader, my license during a code only allows me to stand in the doorway and cheer you on. Like, I can't do anything for the patient. I'm like, good job, you guys. Now, somebody calls a code, right? And you guys are in there just like mean green fighting machines for as long as it takes, doing whatever it takes, and nobody is really ruffled in there. I know on the inside you're probably like, crap, but you guys are just like, this happened, do this happened, do this happened. And then here's what I noticed about many of you lovely nurses. You would walk out and you'd come to our central area, and a change would have occurred while you were gone. Somebody would have moved like a mug of paper clips about a foot. And I know the adrenaline factor, but here's how some of you would react. Like, oh my gosh, I can't take this. I can't find anything. Things keep changing. You can't count on anything. No one values us. They mess with our stuff. Anybody just a little guilty? I'd be like, what is wrong with you? They're like, I'm just not good at change. And I go, baloney. I saw you in there. You are fantastic at change. Can you imagine if you approach the code like you do paper clips moving? You go to the code and you go, I'm sorry, sir. We can't do all of this at once. You're gonna need to pick blood pressure or heart rate. You're gonna need to pick, this is just too much change, right? And is my second code of the day. So we're gonna schedule this for tomorrow because I'd really like to slow change down. I got a lot going on. You see how ridiculous that is, right? But why are you guys good at codes? Because you're ready for them. You train for them. There's some of you who are just always checking that crash. I'm like, what are you doing? Just checking the card again. I'm like, awesome. I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm not a nurse. They're like, that's why people die if you took care of them. I'm like, that's awesome. Stay ready. But yet, when it comes to change, we don't stay ready. And in fact, a lot of the times we skip a few upgrades and we come in less ready. Let's say that I and you are colleagues. So we'll just say, I'll call Sue and me. And our employer gives us new smartphones, and we're to do all of our communication now on mobile platforms. If change were hard, if change is what's hard, it would be equally hard for both of us, because change is what's hard. But it's not equally hard for both of us, right? Depending on our readiness. So you give me a new smartphone, and I never skip an upgrade. It is my competitive advantage with my children. I get the upgrade first. I realize all the ways they could use the new technology for evil, okay? And I study it. So when Apple let you turn off your location services for the first time, I was ready. I got the upgrade first. I realized that was something they could do. So I took all of the iPads we weren't using any longer. I turned the location services on, and whoops, I lost them in the trunk of every Chevy Malibu. So when I would see the location services go off, I would look up where my kid was, and I would call him up. I go, hey, this is your mom. Are you making good choices? They're like, how does she know where I'm at, right? So I'm tech savvy. You give me a new cell phone, I'm like, awesome. I go to the cloud, I get my stuff. It may take me a day or two to get comfortable, but I love you. Thank you for the tools to do my job. Give me an engagement survey. I want to put your name on it with a little heart by it. My colleague, Sue, she's had the same flip phone since high school. She has skipped 27 upgrades. She gets a new cell phone. Is change equally hard for us? No, she's curled up in the fetal position. She's like, are we going to get super user training? Can I get a scribe to run my phone just for the first year? Yeah. And so we got to move beyond this whole change piece. And then lastly, engagement. Engagement is fantastic, but what high accountables know is that engagement is a choice, that our reality isn't the reasons we can't succeed, as I said. That it's nice when great environments meet chosen high accountable people, but I can't buy your love with Coke and Pepsi in the break room. And a lot of us think if only you change my circumstances, I would be happier, which is more engaged. And that's not what drives engagement. So I'd love to give you some ideas on how to move through life differently. Now, your role is to use good mental processes. Drama is emotional waste. Waste, okay? Waste, emotional waste. How do you get rid of waste? With a good process. How do you get rid of emotional waste? With a good mental process. What's a good mental process? A question like, what does great look like? See, now, when that nurse is in a room, triggered, and she's like, this is unacceptable. I gotta go find Wakeman. She's just gonna ask me what great would look like. I just think I'll stay and be great. You start to run your own toggle switch. You start to be able to flip into all of your intelligence. Does that make sense to you guys? So let's take a look at when you're toggled down, right? What that looks like when you're toggled down. And I just lost track of time. What time do we go till? 1:30? Okay, perfect. Oh, I'm on a different time zone. Perfect, till 1:30. In fact, because we're a little short on time, I just want to tell you a couple of stories, because here's what happens. So we're going to skip this one slide. I was part of a group, and we were in a large academic med center, and we were moving. And not just once, but 3 times. So we had been given a lot of donor gifts, and we were building all over campus. And you guys know how the move goes. You're going to move here, and then you're going to move down there, and then you're going to move back here. And as the HR, I was a little mad. I'm like, why are we moving 3 times? And they don't have to move at all. And facilities goes, well, you have filing cabinets. They have patients on ventilators. We thought we would move you more than your fair share. I'm like, oh, got it. I'm in, right? Makes sense. My team moved the first time to an old part of the college, and we started to get headaches. And so we called employee health, and they came out, and they tested our blood, and they gave us a pamphlet on lead poisoning, and moved us out in the night. And then we got moved to a different location, and it was awesome because we can see our new buildings being built, and then we saw our new buildings being torn down because they found out they were built on Native American burial grounds, and we worked with our Lakota Nation neighbors to put in ceremonial gardens instead. Long story short, my team heard that we were moving for the 5th time in 18 months, and they had torches and pitchforks. They're like, we're not moving, right? They were done. I'm like, how can I help you guys? They're like, so I go, stop the moving. Change the reality, go stop the moving. I got all fired up. I go, I'm stopping the moving. I'm gonna go up to the glass hallway. I'm talking to the CEO. I'm gonna tell him to stop the moving. We are a dream team. I grabbed my acrylic trophy off of our desk. We had just recently won. And I went to the executive hallway, and I went to the support person. I said, I demand to see Doug Johnson. I'm going to stop the movement. My people are suffering, and I'm going to represent my people. And we're going to come to Jesus. It's a Catholic institution, and it's time for a come to Jesus, because I am I'm done. I was surprised she picked up the phone. She goes, yes, please come immediately. I thought, I didn't know I had that much power to get someone up the CEO. What I didn't know when they promoted me is I had skills, but they were a little worried about me committing career suicide. So they put a safety net in place. They trained the support people, if I was ever up there demanding to see an executive, to pretend to call them and to call my mentor instead. Save my career. So I'm waiting for Doug Johnson. I turn around, I'm like, Sister Mary Catherine, what are you always doing here when I'm trying to see Doug Johnson? And she's like, oh, I don't know. What's up? What's going on? How are you doing? And I'm like, my people are suffering. And she goes, why are they suffering? I go, because we move all the time. She goes, well, no, moving's your reality. Why are they suffering? I go, because we move all the time. She goes, no, that's the reality. Why are they suffering? And do you know why my team was suffering? It's not because we moved all the time. It's because we haven't yet gotten mobile. If you're mobile, moving doesn't hurt. We hadn't changed our approach. We hadn't upped our skill set. Our willingness went down. And you know when your job starts to feel impossible? Those are the 3 things to check. Am I trying to do a job with new demands with an old skill set? Am I trying to do a job with new demands with an old approach? If I modernize my approach, what's my level of willingness? And so I went back to my team. I said, team, it's not about stopping the movement. It's about getting mobile. How can we get mobile? So when they call to move us, it's a non-issue. We're like immune. It doesn't phase us. We're unflappable. Now my team wanted to focus on why we can't, why we shouldn't have to. I needed to manage the energy into how we could, and I discovered a new role for each of us as leaders in our meetings. It's not about managing people. You don't have control over people, but it is about managing energy. Managing energy away from why we can't, why we shouldn't have to how we could. And I've been in some shared governance situations where all of a sudden we lose our way, and we start to focus on why we shouldn't have to instead of how we could enable this. And once you move the energy back, you're in high self, you're happy again, and you have a lot to offer. So my team, when the energy started moving in that direction, got super innovative. They came up with all kinds of amazing ideas on how we could get, we became nomads. We became little backpack HR people who wandered amongst others. Business partner model was born 20 years later. We were doing it 20 years before its time because we got really innovative. This leader for me separated out suffering from reality. Reality is reality. Suffering is completely optional and never mandatory. But if you watch out, we're pretty good at suffering. We're good at pre-suffering. We're heading into summer, and some of you are already going, yeah, but flu season will be back next year. And if we don't get enough grads in and we don't get them rounded up and through residency, we're all going to have a horrible time, right? So we've got to move away from suffering, and we've got to move into high toggle switch. And one way to do that is with 2 more questions before you go. One of my favorite questions is, how can I help? And whenever you're judging, you can just stop judging and start helping with this question. You come to me to tattle sometimes. At least my experience was, people come up and they're like, oh my gosh, IT is killing us. The conversion went horrible. Karen, I don't know how Karen keeps her job, and she's really incompetent, and I'm surrounded by idiots, and this is just a disaster. And I'm like, time out. I use language. I go, I love that you're in my office sharing your love and concern for our colleagues in IT. It sounds like the conversion didn't go as planned. That has to be a little painful for them. And I'm just wondering, what did you do to help? Toggle you up. We have to toggle each other up. What could I do to help? What's my part in this mess? To the point where, as if you were tattling, I would take you over to the person you were complaining about, and I would say, Tammy, Karen, Tammy is just in my office sharing love and concern for you, and she has a question for you. Go ahead, Tammy. And Tammy would be like, how can I help? See, once you're focused on what great looks like, you naturally move into what can I do to help? But if you're not careful, your ego will try and flip you down again. You'll be almost great and almost helpful, but then your ego will remind you shouldn't have to. I had some physicians on a unit, and they needed lab to be able to round on the patients, and I went to my team, I go, why don't we have lab? Well, lab hasn't pushed them yet. And I go, well, there's no way to get that information? They go, well, no, we could pull it. I go, well, what would great look like? They're like, well, we could print them out and pull it. I go, awesome, be great. And they almost were, until they went, yeah, but we shouldn't have to. I'm like, oh, you were almost great. And then somebody was almost great. She was doing it. She goes, yeah, but if I do it for this time, I'll have to do it every time. I go, dang, you're almost great. Do you hear how your ego just keeps playing you? Or you could just be great and happy, your choice. And I already talked about empowerment, stepping into this power you already have. And by now you figured out your ego's not your amigo. And venting is the ego's way of avoiding self-reflection. And self-reflection is the foundation of accountability. And accountability is really death to the ego. And I want to leave you with the thinking that self-reflection is the ultimate drama diffuser. And there's one more question that you're going to love. It's the ultimate question. And that question is, what do I know for sure? It's a fantastic one. It's the less in the list. It's a fantastic question. This question, what do I know for sure, releases the ego's grip on your view of the world. And what you'll find is your reality is never as harsh as your story. And you'll learn that your stories are what causes your stress, not your realities. And you'll get like instant freedom. So this question, what do I know for sure, is the whole baseline of reminding me that my suffering's optional. It's not crazy, it's busy. I don't have to suffer. 2 ways to go through the day. That question can take my boss, who's a micromanager that treats me like a child, and I go, well, what do I know for sure? He becomes just a guy who prefers more detail than I like to give. An ex-husband is trying to take my kids from me and violate the custody agreement, becomes a dad just asking for another day with his kids at Thanksgiving. That question, what do I know for sure, takes a harsh, mean world and turns it into just another challenge or process that we can implement or problem we can solve. So every year I go hiking in Mexico, and I take a group of leaders, and these are the people from Google who helped map the human genome. And so we're on the Sacred Mountain. The view is spectacular. The company is amazing. I feel like I'm so blissful. I won life's lottery. Have you ever had those days where you're like, I'm so glad I chose nursing. I can't believe they even pay me to do this. Like those moments. I was there. I turned to walk forward, and there's something squiggly up on the path. And with a single thought, snake, I went from, I love my job, I can't believe they pay me to do this, to, I can't believe they pay me crap to do this, that I don't get paid enough, right? Now, what happened to my beautiful, blissful state? One thought, unquestioned, believed. I go, that's a snake. And the minute I thought that thought, I started to hyperventilate, major organ systems were shutting down. I am freaking out. I need a plan. I can't remember what to do if I get bit by a snake. I can only remember a John Wayne movie. He got bit by a snake. He took out his pocket knife, cut an X in his hand, sucked out his blood and the venom, spit it out, saved his own life. This is the point where nurses would like me to go, don't ever do that. It's a horrible idea. It's very bad. It's all I had. It's the only plan I had. So I thought, I got my hand on my pocket knife. I'm going to get bit by a snake. I'm racing in my thoughts. If I get bit, I can just cut an X. I can do major surgery on myself. I'm tough. And I just need to suck my ankle, That's where my plan fell apart. But then I thought, I wonder if the guy from Google can suck my ankle in an emergency. Like, we're a team on the mountain, right? I just don't know what to do. And I'm thinking, my poor kids, I'm gonna be life flighted off a mountain in a Mexican chopper. I'm done. This could be the end of me. And my kids will be sad, but they'll be really mad because all my secrets will come out. They'll go, how'd my mom die? She got bit by a snake in her ankle. She couldn't suck her ankle. This is how my thinking's going. And they're like, not my mom. My mom is super flexible. My mom got up every morning for 18 years on Saturday and went to yoga. And that's where my secret will come out. You guys, I get up every Saturday morning. I put on yoga pants. I've never been to yoga, okay? But I get dressed. And I tell my kids I'm going to yoga, and I go to the club and drink Bloody Marys with my friends. So you can see my dilemma. I am freaking out. And I get up, and that snake is just a rope off somebody's saddlebag. What caused all my stress in that interim? Was that rope so dangerous and concerning? Or was it my thinking? And how often a day do you turn ropes into snakes? I happen to know because I'm a drama researcher. It's 2.5 hours a day where you walk around convinced there are snakes and saber-toothed tigers. But this question will help you because when you're judging, you're not serving, you're not leading, you're not helping. And here's what we want you to be, and here's what you are when you're toggled up. This is what we want for our patients: innovation, creativity, accountability, engagement. Like, isn't that the place you want to work, the teams you want to build? And the good news is, when you're toggled up, you already are that. You don't have to go find these people. You already have these people. You already are all of those things once the drama's gone. And this is easier than you think, you guys. Michelangelo carved David, beautiful masterpiece. And when he was done, people were just amazed. They're like, was that super hard? And his answer was surprising. He goes, no, it wasn't hard at all. I just removed from the marble anything that wasn't David. Now, when we ask you, go get out there and be innovative and be creative and work together, a lot of times you go, I think that's going to be super hard. We're like, reimagine, recreate, nurse differently. You're like, this is going to be hard. It's not hard if you just remove all that isn't that, which is drama. If you move beyond that, you'll start to find there's this awesome workplace out there, out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing and judgment. When you're toggled up, amazing things happen. And you know this because most of the time, according to your outcomes, you're pretty toggled up around here. It's just those rare moments. So if you were helped at all by what I shared with you, there's a lot of ways to continue to get some information. We put lots of stuff out there for free. You can listen to my podcast. It's called No Ego. You can follow me on social media. Lots of people in your system do that. We have a great YouTube channel that you can use and lots of 3 to 5 minute videos that are just super fun to watch. And if you want to join us, you can text the word peace to 96,000, even though it says reality. Healthcare is peace. Like peace to 96,000. And you'll get on our list, and we'll just feed you on a weekly basis with great ways to keep that toggle switch up and working. Thank you for all of you that you do. I truly was humbled when I got the call to come to Duke because I admire the work you do, and we hold you up as an example often. So I know I'm in the midst of greatness, and I appreciate what you do, and the world's a better place because you guys are here. So thank you. And now for the prizes. And I hear nurses love free things.
All right. Well, another round of applause and thanking Cy for being here today.
Appreciate it.
And so, let us see. We have 6 books. Oh, all right. Figure out my numbering system here. All right. The first one is 1319317. All right, 1319317. Going once.